Good morning, YouTube. This is Wayne from Smith's Farm Shenanigans, out here this morning with another video. We're going to be talking about a part in this heat pump that's very vital to its function. Maybe your heat pump's been running, but your home still feels like a sauna, it's still hot. Or maybe it's wintertime and your system is just barely blowing out lukewarm air. It's not very warm at all. But before you start throwing money at this thing, by spending it on an HVAC person, there's a tiny part in here that keeps this system running properly, and it may be failing, and it may be the very big reason why your heat pump is costing you big time money. So stay tuned, and I'm going to get you turned around and we're going to see what that part is. We're in the home now, and that is the TXV valve right there. You have your incoming line down here, then you have your other line coming out here, and this little line here is for temperature, this little line back there is for your pressure. Remember, it works based on temperature and pressure, and it will let so much fluid go through, Freon, go through based on the temperature and the pressure it's reading here. That's why it's very important. And that's why it's a major component in your heat pump that most people don't even think about. In this video, I'll be breaking down exactly how the TXV works, how to tell if it's failing you, and what you can do to test it and fix it. So stick around. So the TXV, it's like a traffic cop of your refrigerant system. It controls how much refrigerant flows through the system into the evaporator coils. If you get too much refrigerant through your system, the coils get flooded. If you get too little refrigerant through the system, then your evaporator coils get frozen, a block of ice out here. And I'll be putting up a link over here somewhere, a picture rather, that's showing you a diagram of that, of the evaporator coil, and exactly what I'm talking about when the flow comes through. And so you'll be better able to understand what I'm talking about. And for those of you who work on cars or know a little bit about automobiles, you can think of the TXV valve kind of like a fuel injector, for your car. It meters how much refrigerant flows through the system based on the temperature and the pressure. And that's two of the things we'll be talking about later, and how to diagnose a bad TXV. Now, not all systems use a TXV. Some systems use what's called a fixed orifice. That meters how much flow comes through, but those are fixed. That means they cannot adjust. They're not dynamic. They can't adjust based on temperature. They can't adjust based on a hydrostatic pressure either. So what they only do is to let a certain amount come through at all times. But TXV, it does a much better job of controlling how much refrigerant goes through your system based on temperature and pressure. So, how do you know if your TXV is failing? Well, I'm going to lay out probably four of the biggest warning signs that you may get that'll let you know you probably have a TXV that's failing inside this unit. The first condition is that you will get weak cooling in your home. So like in the summertime, you turn it on and you'll swear up and down that your refrigerant is low. You don't have enough Freon in your system, and you'll call a tech out there. And I seen this when I was back years ago when I was doing heat pumps. This was a somewhat common complaint. People would call and say, "Hey, my system's low in Freon." You get out there and you test it, and Freon's perfect. Come to find out, it's a blocked a TXV. So even though your house may be set to cool in warm weather, it doesn't get very cool. The air coming out of your vents is still lukewarm. That's a prime example of a failing TXV valve. And number two, the second reason is high head pressure and superheat issues. Now, a lot of you guys won't know what that means and what it's talking about, but it simply means if the basis of it is if your TXV gets stuck shut, it will starve the system of Freon. Okay, so that means if it's stuck shut, nothing's going through. Therefore, it can't do what it's supposed to do. It can't heat or cool, right? But if it's stuck open, right, the TXV valve, then too much fluid is coming through. It's like I said earlier about the fuel injector. If too much fuel is coming through your fuel injector, what happens? It floods your car. Well, same thing with this TXV. If there's too much Freon going through that valve, it's going to flood the system. And then you have problems, right? And you'll know that too. Because if it's stuck shut, you won't get any cooling. You'll think that you have no Freon in your system, but there will be plenty. If it's stuck open, it'll flood the system, and your coils get frozen up, and all kinds of things will happen, okay? And then number 3, the third biggest thing is there'll be frost on your evaporator coils. There'll be heavy ice buildup due to it being clogged. A clogged TXV causes refrigerant to flash off or out too soon. It leaves your evaporator coils frozen solid because it just poof, it's real fast, and it will freeze your coils solid. Can't work if air's not flowing through these coils out here, going through and coming out. If air's not going through there, nothing's happening, right? And so that's what happens. It freezes these coils almost instantly, and you'll know it when it happens to you. And then the fourth possible cause, warning sign that you'll notice is that it's compressor short cycling, and you'll know that. We've talked about this in other components. It will kick off, kick on, kick off, kick on. You'll hear the compressor kicking off and on, and the reason it's doing that is because the TXV valve, if it's bad, it'll throw the system balance completely wacky. So the compressor don't know what's going on. It may have too little Freon, and it just trying to kick on and cycle. So it just throws the whole system out of balance, and the compressor absolutely does not know what to do. And you'll know that by all you have to do is come out here to your unit and you hear it kicking off. And if you hear the compressor kicking off, and you know the difference, we've talked about this before, it'll kick off, kick on, kick off, kick on, kick off, kick on. Then you know there can be several causes, but the TXV valve is one of those reasons. So now that we know the 4 of the main warning signs of a failing TXV valve, what do? Well, we have to test it, right? We have to know for sure before we go throwing parts at something. And that's the biggest complaint I have with HVAC techs today. They want to throw parts at it, because they haven't been taught properly. And I don't mean to offend anyone out there, and I'm sorry if I do, but the truth remains, they just want to throw parts at it. Because, like I said about the short cycling a minute ago, that can be caused with several things, and if you watch any of my other videos, you'll know some of those things that cause this short cycling. And what they're going to do is they're going to come out here and throw the first part at it that's the easiest to replace, didn't fix it, right? Then they'll throw another part at it, and that's the biggest complaint I have. Let's go through it, and let's understand what could be the problem, and let's try to diagnose. If we think that's the problem, let's diagnose it. Let's test it and see for sure if that is the problem, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check it to understand if it's bad or not. So how you do it? Well, step 1, we're going to check the superheat and supercooling. And I'm not going to try to do that today. I can do a separate video of that later. It's kind of a process. You have to have a set of gauges that we talked about before that most homeowners are not going to have. You can pick up a cheap set, and I don't care what anybody out there tells you. You can look it up for yourself. You are in your rights to put gauges on and check your Freon. However, if you let a substantial amount of Freon leak out of that system, you could be breaking the law. Okay, so be very careful when hooking up gauges, because even the pros, when they put their gauges on, they can't catch that gas that escapes for just a split second. That's why you got to screw them on fast, right? Like I told you the very first video I did on heat pumps about changing the high pressure switch, I've explained to you that's considered escapable gas. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing the pros themselves can do about it. So they will lie to you and tell you, don't you touch that, don't put gauges on it. You can put gauges on it. The law specifically states the handling of Freon. That's what the law talks about. You cannot handle Freon unless you have a license to do so. And that includes letting Freon out into the atmosphere, because you have to put a pump on it and pump the Freon out. That's how the pros do it. And so In order to test this TXV valve, we would have to put gauges on it, which I could do, and we have to have a temperature probe to measure this. And so that's the first step. And if you have low superheat, and you can get if you don't know how to do none of this, you can look it up and it'll show you how to do it. If you have access to a set of gauges and a temperature probe, you most definitely can do it. And there's plenty of good videos on there how to do it from other HVAC pros. I can do it if enough people request it, I'll do it. However, it's not that hard of a process, but you probably don't have the equipment you need to do it. So get a tech to say, hey, I want you to come out and check my Superheat, my Supercool, see what it's doing. And they'll come out there, and if they know anything about heat pumps at all, they'll know exactly how to do this test, and you go outside with them and you watch them. If it has low superheat, they'll know, they'll tell you, you ask them, then your TXV valve is stuck open. And remember what we said when it sticks open? Too much fluid's going through. Not a good thing. If you have high superheat, the superheat's real high, then your TXV valve is stuck closed, right? And then it's starving the system. That's it. That's the two things they would measure. Have someone come out and do it. They should do it very cheaply for you. Then from there, if you have a TXV valve that's bad, either one of those conditions is true, stuck open, stuck closed, then we'll talk about what to do here in a few minutes. So let's go on to the next step. Now, the next step involves taking the TXV valve apart and see if it has a blocked, clogged screen. They have a little screen in them that catches debris. And when that little screen gets blocked, it's like a filter. When it gets blocked up, then obviously it cannot let Freon go through. You may be able to take apart and look at it. However, I would suggest again, while the tech's out there checking your Superheat and Supercool, if he tells you it's clogged, ask him what to do about it. He'll tell you. Don't let him, because they're going to want to replace that TXV valve, and I'll tell you about that here in a few minutes. So clean the filter. Clean the clog out if you can. Some of you can't do it. So the next one we'll talk about. All right. So the third one is adjusting the TXV valve. You can adjust that valve with just a simple screwdriver up and down, and that would change when the valve opens and closes. Because remember, it's a valve that's controlled by pressure and by temperature. So you can adjust how that opens. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, though, this is a part that I can tell you right now, you can figure it out by watching my videos and others. You can do it. You can test it and see if it's bad before you have someone come out. But they're a little bit complicated, okay? But that's the next issue. You can't adjust these. Some of them you can't adjust. If it's the fixed orifice type, you can't do anything for that one, right? So, the main part everybody's been waiting for, replacing the TXV valve. So if you determine you get someone out there and they said, okay, yeah, it's stuck open. Well, then that's not a clogged filter. It's stuck open, it won't unstick. Well, then you're going to have to replace the TXV valve, right? Or if he says, hey, it's stuck closed, but the filter's clean, there's nothing wrong with it. Guess what? You're going to have to replace the TXV valve. Now, here's where it comes into play at. You can technically replace the TXV valve yourself. If you have a history of plumbing and you can solder and braze, you can replace that valve. However, here's the kicker. Remember what I told you a few minutes ago. You cannot, unless you are licensed to handle Freon, you can't draw the Freon out of your system. And you can't put none back in because you're not licensed to handle Freon, right? So, you're probably going to have to get a tech to do that for you, and unfortunately, that's going to cost you a little bit. You could say, if you know how to braze and solder, you could have a guy come out and say, hey, I just want my system emptied of Freon. I got a little work I want to do on it, and then I'll call you back later to get it pumped back up, put fluid back in. All right, that won't be near as much, usually, as them doing the entire job. All right, so you go ahead and replace it. You order your own TXV valve, because remember what I told you earlier, if you order it from a heat pump store or a technician brings it out there, you're going to pay about quadruple what you would pay for it anywhere else. So buy the TXV valve yourself. Then if you don't want to put it in yourself, buy it yourself, have it ready, make sure it fits your heat pump. Remember I told you about that panel you take off. It has all the information on your heat pump on it. And when you go to order that TXV valve, you'll have all the information you need to order that TXV valve. When he comes out there, say, here's the new valve, I want you to put this one on. Someone may not want to do it for you. Just call another one that will. You know, you're a homeowner, if you can afford it, just call a guy and say, hey, I think my TXV valve's bad, come out and put a new one on. If you can afford it. Some of us can't afford it, right? Some of us have to do things ourselves, and that's what this video series is about. It's not meant to offend anyone, it's just meant to help the homeowner. So if you can afford to pay for it, go ahead. If you can't, order it yourself. If you can even put it on yourself, that's even better. Have someone to come out and pump it down. And if you're good at soldering, now remember, it's braiding like copper lines, like you would do in plumbing. That's the same kind of technique you'd use here. If you can do that stuff, you can put it on yourself. Then have them to come back out after they pumped it down, of course. That's when you cut it out and put the new one in, desolder it, put the new one in, and then you call them back out and say, hey, come out and would you come out and check for leaks? Because they'll do what's called a pull down test. So that's what we called it. What they'll do, they'll vacuum put if you don't know what that means, it's a reverse, like still putting pressure in, it's pulling all the air out of it. And so if there's any leak, that gauge will show, because they'll let it stand for a few minutes and it lets it show. If there's a leak, you'll see the gauge go down, you know. And so that's how the tech will know that, hey, it's still got a leak, we got to address that, and the leak's probably going to be what? Where you soldered the TXV valve. So make sure you do a good solder job if you do it yourself, then call the guy back out, have him do a leak down test, vacuum test rather, and then have him put the Freon in it, and you'll be golden, okay? And that's it. That's how you diagnose, fix a TXV valve, get your system back up and running properly. And I hope this video has helped you. We'll be talking on the next video about another component in this series, because I'm trying to cover all of them. Now, if you guys would, leave a comment. Do you like this format better, or the format I was doing on the first few components where I did a lot of graphics, and I wasn't really in front of the camera in it at all, and I wasn't explaining it at all. I was just doing add-ins, you know. If you like which format you like better, if you like this format better, I'll do the rest of them in this format, and I'll try to show you the hands-on parts. And I'll be putting diagrams in this video, and I'll be putting actual pictures of the TXV valve on the side view, so you know what we're talking about with the show and flow of Freon going through one. And so we'll be talking about that next, okay? So if you like this video, please subscribe, share it, like the video, and even leave a comment if you liked it. If you don't feel like I earned it, go on to the next video, whatever you want to do. Again, I'm here to help you guys, and I'd like for this channel to grow so I can help more people. And I would like to start doing, free giveaways, things like that, you know. So stay tuned for more HVAC tips. And when we're done with the HVAC series, we'll start something else. Maybe you guys give me some suggestions what to do. I've been tossing some ideas around, and I may discuss those with you in a later video. So for now, this is it. I'll see you later. God bless you, and have a good day.